Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, holy shamoly, holy mackerel. The last 48 to 72 hours, I've never seen any, and I mean anything like this in my entire life. So, as you know, on Wednesday, what is that, maybe 5 days ago, 6 days ago, they signed a memorandum of understanding in which Iran and the United States agreed to many provisions, but let's just get to the heart of the matter, that Iran would end their blockade of the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for the United States lifting our naval blockade of every Iranian port so that Iran now could start selling oil on the international market without sanctions, and, of course, start to see commercial vessels and ships going into Iranian ports to deliver much-needed food and other supplies. And then it was supposed to kick off 60 days of negotiations during a ceasefire to eventually, hopefully, reach a final deal. And the point of the ceasefire was to discuss Iran's nuclear program. That was the whole point. The 60 days is about the enriched uranium stockpile that they have, their enrichment capacity, and their inability to ever acquire or develop a nuclear bomb. And if they agree to that, then, of course, assets that have been frozen, over 120 million, will be released. All the sanctions will be permanently waived, which they've never had in their history since 1979. And, of course, access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. That's the deal. Holy mackerel. You think the mullahs would be all over this deal. No. So here is now exactly what is happening. Brace yourself. The Iranians are now saying that Israel has violated the memorandum of understanding by launching a series of strikes into Lebanon against Hezbollah targets. Well, why did Israel launch a retaliatory strike? Because Hezbollah, which is controlled by the mullahs, it is a proxy of Iran, has been firing drones, missiles, in fact 56 missiles, 7 deadly drones, in which 5 Israeli soldiers were incinerated. I mean, just evaporated. I don't know how else to say this. 12 others were seriously maimed and injured. They are raining rockets and drones on northern Israel. Israel says, and rightly so, they have the right to defend themselves. So they've launched retaliatory strikes. Trump on Friday expressed exasperation and criticized Bibi Netanyahu, saying, you've got to control yourself. This is going to blow up the entire peace negotiation. Iran, sensing now a division between the United States and Israel, closed the Strait of Hormuz for a while on Friday, then they shut it down again on Saturday as J.D. Vance was flying to Switzerland to lead a negotiating team. Witkoff will be there. Jared Kushner is there to negotiate with Iran. J.D. lands on Sunday. The talks are temporarily back on because now, apparently, the Iranians then said, we're going to close not all of the Strait of Hormuz, but they're basically going to leave one lane open. So a few ships are getting through. Trump, livid, and I don't blame him, upset, furious that they had closed the Strait of Hormuz, which violates the memorandum, and then they're jerking us around by keeping one lane open sometimes, closing it, opening it, closing it, opening it, went on social media and apparently told Fox News that he spoke to Iranian leaders, top Iranian officials, and said to them, apparently on the phone, that if they close the strait one more time, quote, you will have no country left. You close it and you won't have a country. And then he went on to tell these officials, you won't even make it back to your, I can't say this on the air, the F-bomb, you won't even make it back to your effing country. The Iranians responded by saying that they are now calling off the negotiations, at least for now, because this violates the memorandum, threatening to use force against Iran, threatening to blow up the Iranian negotiating team if they should head back to Iran. And so they have now stormed out of the entire negotiating venue. J.D. Vance is urging them to come back. We think they may come back today. We don't quite know. We're getting mixed signals. President Trump then delivered a larger message. He told Fox News that he is now so frustrated with Iran and their games, their obstruction, their stalling, their unseriousness about willing to negotiate a deal, that if they are not careful, quote, he will blow the, I can't say this word on the air, he will blow the crap, the excrement, however you want to phrase it, he will blow the excrement out of them. And he now has told Fox News that, he's now mentioned it twice, that if Iran continues to play games, he now says that the United States will take over the Strait of Hormuz in the future, and that we will collect tolls. The president said, I'm quoting now directly from Fox and Trey Yanks, who we gave the interview with, the president described this as the United States being the guardian angel of the Strait of Hormuz and the Middle East. And the president said ultimately that would involve the United States taking 20% of the oil that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. So, here is where we are right now. The Strait of Hormuz, I don't know what to call it. It is partially open. They close it. They kind of reopen it. It's only one lane. Some ships get through. They claim some kind of a violation by Israel, or in this case, President Trump, and then they close it again for 4 to 6 hours. So it's clear that the Iranians, now remember, our blockade is completely lifted. So ships are going in and out of Iranian ports. They are already selling their oil at market price to the world. So Iran is getting cash. Iran is getting food and all kinds of other valuable supplies coming into their ports. The strait is partially opened. Some ships are getting through, but nowhere near pre-war levels. And so it seems to me very obvious that Iran's strategy is to stall, is to muck up the Strait of Hormuz, to get something through, but not to the extent that the price of gas or oil would really plummet around the world. So this keeps a lot of pressure on Trump. And it is obvious that they're trying to use the strait to dictate the negotiations, because they have now said, unless the Lebanon issue is settled, then they're going to continue to turn on the strait, turn off the strait like a faucet. Turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. And so their ultimate goal, according to the mullahs, is to get Israel out of southern Lebanon completely. But to make sure that Hezbollah stays intact within Lebanon. thereby de facto controlling the country of Lebanon through Hezbollah. So Iran now is exerting maximum leverage to try to kick Israel out of Lebanon, continue its domination of Lebanon through Hezbollah, and essentially now to stall and play for time, waiting for the midterm elections while giving us the minimum possible through the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump is at the end of his rope. He unleashed his fury on social media yesterday. And to the president, I think it is very clear. You are negotiating with snakes. And that's what they are. They're snakes. And they're jerking you around. They're jerking the United States around. They're jerking the world around. Okay, it's a mess. I mean, really, that's just no other way to put it. It's an absolute mess. So, forgive me, I'm battling a little bit of a cold. Apparently now the negotiations may be back on today. I don't know. We'll see. But CENTCOM is insisting that the Strait of Hormuz is open. The Iranians say it is closed. People that monitor the Strait of Hormuz, these are professional groups who are aligned with the commercial shipping industry, say that some ships are getting through, about 50 to 55, 50 I believe on Friday, 55 on Saturday, but that is half, in fact less than half. Usually you got about 130 to 140 on a regular day before the war. So apparently one lane is open. Some are using that lane. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're not. The IRGC is warning them not to use it. They may get blown up. So the ships stop. Then after a couple hours, they say, okay, you can go forward. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. The Iranians now are clearly playing games. They also now are using the talks as leverage to basically push Israel completely out of Lebanon while protecting Hezbollah and ensuring their immunity and that they stay firmly entrenched in Lebanon so Hezbollah can continue to control Lebanon as a colony for Tehran. So we're not even talking about the nuclear program or nuclear issues. Iran is driving the agenda. Iran is setting the table for what we can and can't talk about. Now they've come back and said if the talks do resume, they want the Lebanon issue settled first. Forget the nuclear talks. And then the question of the money. They want money up front. They want at least $12 to $24 billion up front to even begin negotiating on the enrichment and the nuclear enriched uranium stockpile and on their enrichment capability. They also want full waivers on all of their oil exports because it is illegal for them to export oil. So they want an infusion of cash, massive economic financial relief before we even mention a syllable of what Iran is prepared to give up or not give up regarding their nuclear program. I think you're going to see 60 days of this. I think this 60-day ceasefire, it seems to me, is going to be identical to the last 60-day ceasefire, where Iran stalls, plays for time, jerks us around, gives a little, then provokes, gives a little, provokes, because they want to take this to November and they want to keep energy prices as high as they possibly can in order to tank Trump and give the Democrats a victory in November so they can then impeach him, because the Iranians have said very clearly, explicitly, their leadership has said it, their media has said it. I mean, anybody who listened to them, they've said they want permanent, long-term control over the Strait of Hormuz, and they want to charge tolls, fees, whatever you want to call it, on practically every ship that goes through, and they want to charge $2 million a ship. $2 million a ship. So we're going to be paying for this. The world economy is going to be paying for this, but the American consumer is going to be paying for it. Because that $2 million is going to be obviously, that is going to be, handed off to the consumer when you go to buy something at the store. So they believe that they have won the war. They have said this repeatedly. It's not bluff. They truly believe that they took the best the United States and Israel has to offer, that the Israel and United States hit them with everything we had, that they're still standing, and that they effectively control the Strait of Hormuz, and that President Trump does not have the stomach to resume the war. I'm not saying he doesn't. What I'm saying is the Iranians are now convinced that he doesn't have the stomach. Now, after Trump vowed to take control of Iran, he said, I'm done. If the negotiations fail, if there is no deal, Trump said, we will take total control of Iran and we will bomb the crap out of them. Immediately, the Iranian leadership issued a statement, quote, Trump is bluffing. He does not want a war with Iran. We have beaten him once. He knows he will be defeated again. He should watch what he says. Our military will decide victory on the battlefield. We no longer fear the United States. His threats no longer work. So they're telling the president to his face and to J.D. Vance's face, we don't believe your threats anymore. We don't believe you're serious. We don't believe you are going to bomb us. We believe these are hollow, basically baseless threats. And we're going to do what we need to do to win this at the negotiating table because they're convinced that they have won the war. Now, to me, that's the central problem. Iran has become so emboldened in their primitive mind that they're acting like the victors. And you know the expression, to the victors go the spoils. So they believe they're willing to give some concessions, basically a partial reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. But they want everything else. They want Lebanon for themselves. They want Israel out of Lebanon. They want $300, $400, $500 billion in cash. They don't care if it comes from the United States or not. They just want the money. And they want permanent control over the Strait of Hormuz. Now, J.D. Vance is trying to get talks started again. However, the Iranians refuse to shake his hand for a photo op. Okay, the Strait of Hormuz has been, I don't know what to say, closed, not closed, partially closed. It's been a crazy weekend, and the talks have been suspended. Now, apparently, they may be back on. The Iranian negotiating team stormed out after President Trump said he was going to blow up the entire negotiating team before they even got back to, quote unquote, their effing country. Trump is livid. I don't blame him, saying that the Iranians are not serious about any kind of a negotiation. And he said if things continue, he will take back the strait, impose tolls if need be. If not, he may even take over the entire country and bomb the the crap out of them. And he's basically now at his wit's end. And I think they're going to give it one more college try, the good old college try, to try to see if Iran does want to have some kind of a deal. If not, it is starting to look increasingly likely that Trump may have no choice, but he may have to resume the war. We shall see. Now, just very quickly, Bibi Netanyahu has come out and said there is no way the IDF, the Israeli military, is going to pull out of southern Lebanon. They have a zone of security they've established in southern Lebanon. They say if we pull back, Hezbollah will run riot on northern Israel. And that he is not going to allow Hezbollah to massacre Israeli civilians and Israeli soldiers at will. So he has now come out and said Iran could demand anything they want. Israel is not leaving southern Lebanon. Israel has the right to defend itself. It is a sovereign democracy, and it will. So Israel now is not going to comply with the Iranian demands. So that alone may blow up the memorandum of understanding because Hezbollah is not being reined in. Trump now told Iran, you rein in Hezbollah, or I'm telling you I will resume the war and hit you harder than you've ever been hit before. Furthermore, so there's that problem. Here's the ultimate problem. And I'm going to play you this cut, and then I'm going to take all your calls. 617-266-6868. The president of Iran in Farsi delivered a message directly, not just to the Iranian people, but to the world and to J.D. Vance, the negotiating team, and President Trump. Iran's right to enrich nuclear power is not for sale, he said. They will not give up their right to enrichment, which is at the core of the Memorandum of Understanding. He said, so we want you to know that we think Trump will reverse himself on this. He brags how Trump had called for unconditional surrender, regime change. He said Trump reversed himself. He's going to reverse himself on this issue. And he's telling everybody, we will never surrender our right to enrich nuclear, uranium and to enrich nuclear power, because ultimately Iran has ambitions to be a nuclear power. Here is the president of Iran saying, we're never going to give up our right to enrich. Roll cut. Now, it's in Farsi with a translation. Roll cut 5, Mike.
We will not give up our right to enrichment, and they too will be forced to accept it. You all know what the so-called President of the United States was saying. He has made a complete 180-degree turn. He was saying that Iran must surrender unconditionally. Iran has no right to do this. It has no right to do that. Then he gave a speech and said that Iran has the right to do this. It has the right to possess this. In other words, he has reversed himself by 180 degrees compared to his previous positions and has accepted that they cannot ignore our rights.
President Trump, in the interview with Trey Yangst of Fox News and then on Truth Social, said that the Iranian president should, quote, watch his mouth. If he's not careful, Trump said he will bomb Iran into oblivion. So tensions are boiling over. They're at each other's throats. And they just barely begun negotiating. Literally, they just barely begun negotiating. And we don't know if the negotiations are off or they're on. It's a mess. My advice, end this farce. They're jerking Trump around on the international stage. They're mocking us. They're mocking the United States. These are savages. They don't understand negotiations. And clearly, they have not changed their spots. This so-called new regime is the same as the old regime. And so President Trump now needs to make a fundamental decision. Do you want to continue down this negotiating quagmire and continue to be involved in this and constantly threatening and blustering and this back and forth, and the negotiations are on, and they're off, the strait is open, it's closed. Do you want to continue to do this? Or do you want to tear up this memorandum of understanding? Because you cannot negotiate with snakes and vipers. They bite. All they know how to do is bite. And then either declare victory and come home, or resume the war and finish them off once and for all. But to me, as far as I'm concerned, these negotiations are doomed to fail. But that's me. What say you? 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent out in the Pittsburgh area. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. First of all, happy Father's Day. And
Thank you.
Happy Father's Day. Yep.
Thank you, Dave. I know you're on your way to work, buddy. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Jeff, I got a fire truck on my back. He just flew by me like Biden, muttering and spluttering. But, Jeff, get this, all right? And I want to say happy Father's Day to our God and our Savior, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the great I am in the Old Testament, the Lord. No, Jeff, everything is good. My buddy Lorenzo called you up last week, the last call on Friday. But, Jeff, get this, all right? Iran, no matter what we sign, Jeff, they're going to break it. Okay, Jeff? Again, it says in the Quran that they can mess with the infidel and lie like a rug. So that's why they picked up with the Democrats, Jeff. They got that in common. They lie like a rug.
Dave, they've closed the strait again. They've stormed out of negotiations. Trump is threatening to blow up the entire negotiating team, the Iranian negotiating team, if they close the strait one more time. Is this now effectively over, Dave? How can you negotiate like this? Is it essentially over before it even began?
Jeff, it's over because Iran knows they're defeated. They're looking on the sympathy of the liberal media and the MS Nows and all the Democratic Party. You know, the Dixiecrats, Jeff, the quote, because of Juneteenth. The Dixiecrats, they also have the Democrats. But, Jeff, another thing, Mossad, this is in Israel's backyard, Jeff. Mossad should go in there, take care of business, wipe off the IRGC like Mr. Clean cleaning a tub, and it's over, Jeff. Send Mossad, they'll take care of business. Because obviously our CIA, Jeff, are like the Meet the Fockers, central lack of intelligence. Not all of them, Jeff. But the ones I dealt with in the military, they're so dumb they make AOC look like a box of rocks, which isn't hard to do, Jeff.
Dave, thank you very, very much. Basically, he's saying, look, let Israel, unleash Israel and let them start going after the IRGC, going after the Iranian leadership. Okay, I want to put to this, the best audience in the business, Kuhner country, I want to put it to you. 3 questions, and you can take them however you want. Number 1, is it time for President Trump to rescind or just pull out of the Memorandum of Understanding now that talks have broken down again? The Strait of Hormuz is open, closed, and the Iranian delegation, at least for a while, has now stormed out. So is this now just essentially a mess, and let's just pull out of this ridiculous, interim peace agreement, because it's obvious the Iranians aren't serious, and they're clearly stalling. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Number 2, and I don't know why, but this really gets under my skin, that they are openly mocking President Trump, the Iranian leadership, and saying he does not have the guts, the courage to resume the bombing, and that they will bend him to his will, and that he will reverse himself on everything Iran wants. And as the Iranian president openly said, we will never give up our right to enrichment of nuclear power. So what are we negotiating? I mean, seriously, what are we negotiating? The whole MOU calls for them to eventually give up enrichment. No enrichment, no bomb. As Trump said, I will prevent them from ever getting a nuclear bomb. Well, if they're not even going to give up their right to enrichment, what are we talking about? That means they have not given up their aspirations to have a nuclear weapon. So you can't square the circle. You can talk and cajole and threaten and bribe and put money on the table and bang your fist. And in the end, look what you're dealing with. And then number 3, they wouldn't even shake J.D. Vance's hand? That's the kind of contempt they have for the vice president? For our negotiating team for the United States of America? I'm sorry. I really, truly, I really mean this. Trump gave peace a chance. He did. He exhausted every diplomatic avenue. He gave them an incredible deal on the table. More than generous. Again, you know my position. I think he gave too much, but it doesn't matter now. If they can't sign this deal, and clearly, look at them. They're haggling over every word. They're fighting over every little aspect. If they're not serious about negotiating with this kind of a generous offer on the table, they're not serious about peace. And I think after a while, it's beginning to hurt the president's credibility. You know the expression, you can be too nice? That's what's starting to happen to President Trump. And so my strong advice to him is fish or cut bait. Resume the war and finish them off, or just get out. But this, it's not helping him. It's not helping the economy, the world economy. It's not helping the region. I'm sorry, but the Iranians are playing us for fools. And the last thing I ever want to see is my president being played and my country being played. Am I wrong? David in Brookline. And by the way, and we're hurting our ally Israel. I'm sorry, but I have to call it as it is. The Iranians have a strategy to divide the United States from Israel. And if we throw Israel to the wolves, I'm telling you, we are going to empower and embolden a monster in Iran. Israel has the right to defend itself. The enemy here is Iran and their puppet Hezbollah. It's not Israel. David in Brookline. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
People's Republic. And I just want to expound upon a couple of points you made. The mullahs perceive negotiation as weakness. I think that's something a lot of people don't realize. They don't operate the way that most rational people operate. And so they perceive willingness to negotiate with them. It emboldens them to just push for more and not, keep their word on whatever it is that they said the day before. Now, I think obviously President Trump and his people know this very, very well. So I really don't know exactly, what the end game is. I was thinking what you said. Yeah, I think the U.S. could take the Strait of Hormuz, but the CCP is advising. These are 7th century terrorists over there living in caves a lot of the time. Somebody's advising them. So it's the CCP. So if they are advising them, if we take over the Strait of Hormuz, one stray missile and we got a tragedy on our hands. So taking the strait does come with some risk. And then my final point, Jeff, if I could say this, and I know it may sound a little abstract, but you've made it before, you've alluded to it. It's not just the CCP. Who else is advising these 7th century terrorists on the politics and everything else? Is it the Democratic Party or is it their coach, the dear leader? Do you remember, Jeff? I believe it was 2009. And again, I know this sounds conspiratorial, but I'll never forget this, and I paraphrase. He was making a speech saying the U.S. should share their secrets of NASA with the Muslim world. So I wonder if it's not just the CCP, but if it's the Democratic Party and their dear leader somehow advising the mullahs on what to do. And one P.S., Jeff, if I could, and I don't mean to get off track. You had a caller on Friday. I don't remember his name. I think he was from New Jersey. I took issue with what he said. I'm usually pretty objective. To compare the Israeli military to the terrorists, to a country that the only thing they do, and I don't mean the people of Iran, but their government, who the only thing they know is terror, killing, death-worshipping, hating, roadside bombs, etc. To compare the Israeli military to them, I'm going to choose my words carefully. He's a fool, and I won't comment on what's in his head and his heart, but absolute asinine statement.
Oh, look, it's anti-Semitism. I'm going to be very honest with you. You're seeing it everywhere now, on the left, even some on the right, where they keep comparing Israel to Iran, comparing Israel to Hezbollah. Now they're openly comparing them to the Nazis. I mean, I'm not kidding. The left's lead podcast influencer, basically, I would say like their Rush Limbaugh, okay, is a guy called Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker, he's nuts. I'm telling you, he's deranged. He's a hardcore communist. I mean, he's a hammer and sickle communist. He's an admirer of China. He's an admirer of Castro's Cuba. He's an admirer of the old Soviet Union. The libs love him. All of these Democrat socialists of America, he's must listening. They love him. AOC listens to him. Graham Plattner listens to him. Mamdani listens to him. That's their guy. Okay, that's their Rush Limbaugh. He has now come out and said he's a vicious anti-Semite. He has come out and said, his words, Israel does not have the right to exist. And that he says they are just like Nazi Germany. And just like Nazi Germany was wiped off the face of the earth, Israel should be wiped off the face of the earth. So that's the poison that the Democrats and the left are swimming in. And you're absolutely correct. This is not even a conspiracy theory. The Democratic Party is in open alliance with Iran. The Democratic Party is constantly giving advice to the mullahs because they want Trump to lose. They want Iran to win. They want Iran to win for several reasons. Okay, but one of the biggest ones is they want to smash Trump's mouth, his teeth in the midterms. And they believe that if Trump loses this war, then they can run on this defeat and basically drive Trump out of Washington on a rail. Take back the House, take back the Senate, and then lay the ground for a massive impeachment. Now, I can play you the cut. I have Kamala Harris in her own words. In her own words. She's on with Don Lemon. And he says, well, if the Democrats win the midterms and, you come back to power in 2028 or somebody like you, what are the Democrats' plan for the country? And she says it openly. 13 Supreme Court justices. We're going to pack the Supreme Court. We're going to give statehood to Puerto Rico and to Washington, D.C. So that's 4 extra Senate seats. And she says we're going to abolish the Electoral College. And then comes amnesty for every single illegal alien. And we're going to reopen the border. And someone like Trump can never win again. And the Republicans will never hold power again. And even if they do, we'll have a packed crony, a puppet Supreme Court, rubber stamp Supreme Court that will block and shoot down anything the Republicans pass. So they're going for a communist takeover of the United States. And they hate Israel. They don't just hate America. They hate Israel. And I'm warning all the Jews out there. They're going to come for you. You got to listen to they're running a guy with a Nazi tattoo for 18 years. And it's an SS tattoo. And he said, it's my tattoo. He loves it. They're listening to a guy, Hassan Piker, who's calling for the massacre and elimination of all Jews. They've got a mayor in New York now who's a vile, virulent anti-Semite who says he can't even stand to see someone with a skull cap or who looks Jewish or has the Star of David. I mean, do I have to keep going on? How much more evidence needs to pile up? And so the closest heir to the Third Reich are the Islamo-fascists in Iran. It's a fact. And the Democrats are siding with Iran and Hezbollah. So that's why, and look, my big fear, and it's nothing against the brave people of Iran. I love the people of Iran. I wouldn't want to live under these animals, would you? Who would? These barbarians that enslave you. But my ultimate concern, I'm sorry, I'm America first, is America. We don't come back if the commies take over. You don't come back if the far left takes over. You just don't. And then we're screwed and the world is screwed. And that's why I'm seriously urging to the President of the United States, I don't see a road here, a path to some kind of success. I don't see it. I mean, it's at 24 hours into the negotiations and you're already threatening to blow up the whole country. I'm not blaming him. I'm just explaining. Trump is so frustrated after 24 hours. Saying, don't close the Strait of Hormuz. Stop doing that. Stop telling me that, you're not going to meet with my negotiators. Stop telling me that I've got to sell Israel down the river and that I have to protect Hezbollah. You don't call the shots. So he's, if we're 24 hours in and you're threatening to blow up the entire negotiating team and the entire country of Iran, I don't see how this is going to work. Now, look, you gave peace a chance. You exhausted every diplomatic option imaginable. You bent over backwards to choose the path of peace. But sometimes with 7th century medieval barbarians, there's nothing to negotiate. They love Hitler. Well, let's use the Hitler analogy. You can't negotiate with Hitler. I'm sorry. Or, the Imperial Japanese Tojo. And honestly, they do remind me more of Tojo, the Imperial Japanese, than Hitler. Okay? But anyway, just let that go. You can't negotiate. You just can't. And I'll tell you, our negotiators, our media, the negotiating team, you got to hear Witkoff, Kushner, J.D. Vance. He goes, I've never seen this. We're arguing over every single word. Like Bill Clinton made a big deal about, what's the definition of is. Okay, that was to try to cover up having sex with an intern in the Oval Office. So the definition of sex and the definition of is, but it's not every word. With these people, it's every single word. And they love to fight. They live to fight. They live to argue. They live to bicker. For them, it's drama. For them, they go back and tell the story again. I told JD. We never give up our right to enrichment. I told the American to his face. He extended hand of friendship. I said, puh, that to America. And they live for this. I'm telling you. Oh, and then they'll tell the story 1,000 times. I'm telling you, that's how they are. We're not negotiating with France. The Saudis are much easier to negotiate with, or the Kuwaitis, or I don't care. Take your pick. Look at the pictures. They walk in like they own the place. They're bulging with aggression. They truly believe in their warped, fanatical mind they've won the war. Because for them, think about it, 13,000 strikes and they're still standing? And now they're able to cut off the Strait of Hormuz at will with their boot on the throat of the world economy? They feel like lions. They feel like champions. So that's what we're running up against. They don't live in the real world. They live in some Islamist fantasy. And now they're starting to mistreat and disrespect our vice president, our president, the United States of America, and our negotiating team. I'm sorry, you walked out on us? No. We walk out on you. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Maestro Mike. Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. I got a few points about all of this stuff. First of all, the tenure of everything changed with this war, which isn't even a few months old. I mean, which most of it's been a ceasefire. But we weren't prepared to go to war, and it's pretty obvious now. And we found that out when Hegseth stupidly went before a Senate Intelligence Committee and divulged the fact that we were out of weapons. And then after that, Mark Kelly went on Face the Nation and divulged that we don't have enough weapons, that we were out of weapons. And to further point out the truth of it, Trump has invoked the Defense Production Act, which is designed to force manufacturing companies to replenish, accelerate the replenishment of our weapons. And that's why I think we're not fighting. And now Iran obviously found out about it because Mark Kelly divulged it to the world. And Trump stupidly is acting like a raving lunatic, and instead of keeping his mouth shut and stop making all these empty threats because he backed himself into a corner. And the fact that he's turned on he couldn't shine Bibi Netanyahu's shoes for what Israel has had to go through since 1948. They were attacked the day after. They've been dealing with the Palestinian threat for 80 years, after one peace deal, after another peace deal, after another peace deal, which this country has rammed down their throat. And there was peace for, land for peace. How did that work? You can't negotiate with people who are
fanatics. Arthur, can you do me a favor? I'm up against a hard break. Please, I want you to continue. Okay, let's go right back to Arthur. Arthur, you're saying basically Trump now has backed himself into a corner. Pete Hegseth revealed that we've run out of munitions. We're low on armaments. Mark Kelly, after a classified briefing, told the world in an interview, basically we've depleted our stockpile. So essentially you're saying we may not even have the weapons or the firepower to even resume a war if we want to. The Iranians know this, and so now they feel they're holding the cards. Please pick up where you left off, Arthur. Arthur, did we lose you? Okay. All right, let's go to Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome.
How you doing, kid? Hey, well, Trump needs to tell them face to face. I have another option. That option will be taking Iran out of the oil business. They export from 2 million barrels to a little over 2 million daily. Their top four are United States, along with Canada, Russia, etc. There are 80 to 90 countries who export oil on a daily basis. 40% of that power are Muslim countries, by the way. I would think that Russia, push comes to shove, would be very happy to throw out another 2 million barrels a day without any sanctions, even though they've been pals with these idiots for a long time. We're talking about money here and power, right? I ain't saying we make them powerful. I'm just saying, how about the United States itself? We're always bragging about how much oil we have, okay? Part of this problem, by the way, is the whole oil industry. So what you would do is destroy Corgus Island, okay, for starters. At some point, the oil that they produce has to come above the ground. I know we always hear about everything's on the ground there, but it has to become visible at some point, visible to go onto a ship. That you keep destroying. Take them out of the oil business, threaten them to do that, and say, by the way, that's another option we haven't discussed, okay? How you'll be selling more pistachio nuts, which is about all your next big export is. I think it's number 2 in the world behind the United States, by the way. I say this jokingly. However, there are 1,300 that they admit to leave their borders every day. It's been happening for years. They go through the northern border, Armenia, safe passage through these places, Turkey. Why? And most of them are younger people, not the elderly. They're going to stay put where they are, like Florida, okay? It's not that it is Florida, but what I'm saying is they are bleeding people, productive people, okay? Military in the last 6-7 months are sneaking through the border too. This is what, not just that, their economy is why they're at the table. What do? They eat, live, and drink oil. Take that away from them. It is not that hard. Just throw that out there and say, by the way, we don't have to destroy the whole country. We just destroy what you produce. What do you think?
Just destroy Carg Island. That's it. It's over. They can't sell a drop of oil on the world market. I mean, that's it. It's over. Now, that will cause energy prices to rise around the world. So you have to have a plan B for other countries to pump out more oil. And you're right. It may lead to the Russians saying, look, you guys are going to have a once in a, generation opportunity, sanctions free, pump out 2 million more barrels a day, make up for the difference that, the loss of Iranian oil, and we'll look the other way on sanctions. I mean, there's a million ways we can play this, but you're right. We have a lot of options. And look, just reimpose the blockade. The blockade was squeezing it was choking them to death. The problem is, look, I'm just going back to what Trump himself said. I'm giving you now exactly what he said. He said, I had to sign a peace deal. I had to, he said. Why? Because the Iranian blockade of the Strait of Hormuz was driving energy prices, oil and gas around the world so high that we were going to have a global depression and that this would lead to a massive recession in the United States. And I did not want to become the next Herbert Hoover. I can play you the cuts. That's literally what he said. So he said, I had to make a deal. Now, to be honest, I don't think, even if it's true, he should not have said that in public. I think he was very tired. He was in France. He hadn't slept in days. And when you're tired, your filter is down, your guard is down, stuff comes out of your mouth, you go, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But by saying that, he basically told the Iranians inadvertently, not intentionally, but inadvertently, you have the power. You have the power. Whoever controls the Strait of Hormuz essentially controls the world economy. So you now have the power. And that, I think, has really emboldened the Iranians. So I think what Trump now needs to do, and that's why he's he's telling, I'm going to take back the Strait. And if, you want to talk about tolls, we're going to charge tolls. as he put it, as the guardian angel. And Trump is, and asked, well, how much are you going to charge? And he said 20% of all the oil going in and out. We're going to take a cut of 1/5 of every oil tanker that comes in. That's going to be our price. So he's basically telling the Iranians, you think you're going to take over the Strait of Hormuz? We're going to take over the Strait of Hormuz. You think you're going to charge tolls? You're $2 million per ship? We're going to charge 20%, including all of your ships. Now, he's got the Navy to do it. He's got the military firepower to do it. The question is, does he have the stomach or the will to do it? Because there's a massive poll out. 78% of Americans want the war to end now. Like yesterday. So the war has become unpopular. And Trump knows that. And he's heading into the midterms. And so he needs to find a way to break out of this box. Okay, Arthur is back. Arthur, you were adamant on this point that we're running out of munitions. We've depleted our stockpile. Senator Mark Kelly, that traitor, announced it to the world in an interview. Pete Hegseth admitted it in a congressional hearing. And you can't negotiate with fanatics. Israel knows what they're doing. It's their neighborhood. They live there. And to tie Israel's hands now would be a massive mistake. Please pick up where you left off, Arthur.
Well, another point with Trump turning around and talking to Bibi Netanyahu the way he did. And number one, if he did that, that's bad enough. But to turn around and tell the world that he told Netanyahu and Israel that if it weren't for me, you'd be destroyed. How disgusting a statement is that for the best ally that this country's ever had? And probably all the targets that we get in Iran are probably from the Mossad. But because he's been behaving like that and acting like that towards Israel, that's emboldened all the enemies of Israel that we have in this country, because there's been a huge rise in anti-Israel open rebellion against our biggest ally, which is, of course, tied to anti-Semitism, which I don't know why we don't fight it in this country. Another point is the midterm elections, Jeff. The first call I made when Trump got elected 8 years ago or 10 years ago was he's got to clean up this election integrity in this country. And we have 120 days left, and he hasn't done a thing about it. They were supposed to investigate what goes on in California. In California, they have two elections. They have the one on an election that's on election day, and then they have their second election after that election's over, which is incredible that that's allowed. And it should have been brought before the Supreme Court that there shouldn't be harvesting, that we should have one election day. And there shouldn't be mail-in ballots. Why do we need mail-in ballots when we have early voting, okay? I mean, there's enough over-convenience for people to get to the polls. And Jeff, if we don't do anything about the elections, they're going to steal it in November. It doesn't matter what goes on if we don't clean up Fulton County, we don't clean up Connecticut, we don't clean up New York, we don't clean up Illinois, California, Arizona. How are we going to win? And we haven't done so well in all the elections that we've had. So I've got a bad feeling about what's going to happen in November, because Trump hasn't done anything about that, and he's prosecuting this war in Iran. He's emboldened them, and a wise president once said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." You don't see Netanyahu every day ranting and raving about, "I'm going to do this." They just do what they have to do. And Trump should keep his mouth shut. I'm tired of listening to him ranting. He's made himself look like the biggest fool that's ever been in the presidency as far as prosecuting a war. He's not supposed to act like that. He's not supposed to have press conference telling everybody, tipping off what he's going to do. He's hurt his own cause and he's made a fool of himself. And he's hurt our country on top of it, our credibility. And a memorandum of understanding. What is he doing here? A real estate deal? We need. This is where a businessman has failed us as a man in time of war. And the most important responsibility of a commander when you go to war is to get it over with as quick as you can and use every resources you have to put that war to an end as quick as possible. So that will end the loss of life. And the only way you can deal with terrorists is to bring them to their knees and get rid of them. That's the only way. You can't negotiate with. 10 years ago, Obama negotiated with them, and he was their friend. And here we are back 10 years later.
Arthur, I'm with you. Look, Iran is the greatest sponsor of terrorism in the world. To me, they are a terrorist state. This is a terrorist regime, and you can't negotiate with terrorists. I'm with you all the way. And look, Arthur, I've said it many times, but I have to keep repeating it because it's true. The biggest mistake of the war, and for the life of me, I don't understand why they did not do this, was they didn't take the Strait of Hormuz within the first few days of the bombing, when the regime was being decapitated, when the Ayatollah was murdered, was killed, assassinated, when, we were bombing all of their key military targets. We had them on the ropes. And we should have come in with our Navy and seized control of the strait. And we didn't. And we were just so preoccupied with the bombing and the missile strikes. And the Iranians came in the dead of night and they just took control over much of the strait. And we've been on the defensive ever since. And I don't understand why we didn't do that. Because that would have been the knockout blow. Then they would have literally no leverage, no cards to play. Now they think they've won. Arthur, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. Look, I can just tell you by what the media is reporting. The media reports that it was Pete Hegseth, along with Lindsey Graham, and retired general, that clown, Keane on Fox, and a columnist at the Washington Post, Mark Thiessen. They've been advising Trump throughout the entire war. And they said, no, you don't need to take it over. Because, to be fair, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, said, well, we've got to take over the strait. It's going to take a lot of work, deploy a lot of assets. But he's the leader of CENTCOM, and he said we got to go in there and take the strait. And they all said to him, they said, Mr. President, don't worry about it. This thing will be over in 10 days. It'll be a lightning war. You kick the door down, the whole rotten structure will come crashing down. Take out the like Maduro. We just take out the Ayatollah, take out the top IRGC military commanders, decapitate their leadership, hit all of their 3 nuclear sites again, pound their key military positions. He goes, and the army will defect, the IRGC will break apart, the people will rise up. This thing is over 2 weeks maximum. And 2 weeks is now turning into 4 months. And we did not capture the Strait of Hormuz. By the way, every war game for 25 years said immediately after we attack Iran, as they were wargaming this, that the Iranians would immediately block the Strait of Hormuz. Immediately. So Hegseth has to answer this question. Why did you not prepare a plan B to block the Strait of Hormuz? It was a failure in war planning by Pete Hegseth. And that's why I'm demanding that he resign. Because he failed the operation, he failed the president, I believe he failed the Iranian people, and I believe he failed the world. Someone's got to be held accountable for this. Okay, lines are blazing. Jim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Jim. What's on your mind, my friend?
So last week I called in, and you actually had a good point. So that I was always been on the let's not even get involved in this war side. So you were talking about the walk away point, this walk away position. I'm like, okay, I actually kind of do agree with that because the deal. Let's just be honest. It looks bad. I'm not a fan of the deal. I still like a deal of a war, and I'll get that in one quick second. But the deal was bad. It looks bad. And the other one was war. And a lot of people are calling in, let's just go in. Well, we did go in. We went in heavy in the air, and it didn't work. We lost 50% of our munitions. We took them out of Southeast Asia, and we didn't do ground troops. But that would be, if we're going to go back at this, there's two options. There's ground troops, which yes, it could be successful, but also come with a very, very, very high cost, which I don't think Americans are going to want, and I think it'll destroy the Republicans. The other would be unconventional weapons, which I never hold it past because they're there for a reason. They're not there to just sit and collect dust. You got three types. You got the thermonuclear, you got the atmospheric nuclear, and you get the tactical. Now, atmospheric might be the way they go, and that's not good. It's not thermal, but it's really terrible. So anyways, your position was the kind of let's just walk away. And I'm like, you know what, maybe, and I'm not saying walk away, but I'm saying let's just kind of play status quo, maybe the blockade, maybe let's make this an economic attrition between us and Iran and the world, because what will happen is we can withstand it. I don't like it, but we can withstand it. Iran cannot withstand it. You know, who can withstand it? Us, China, and Russia. Now, let's be honest. What is the world right now? It's basically us, the three superpowers running this world. It's China, it's Russia, and the U.S. So if anything, it's just going to cement what we already know is. It's regional hegemony, and it's power in these regions, and it would just be solidified. And so that might be an option, a realistic option. And then in the meantime with that, maybe to solve the situation in Lebanon, do what they did in North Korea, a demilitarization zone. They hate each other. North Korea, South Korea hate each other to death, worse than anyone I can imagine. But they did that. So maybe try to work on that. And then the other option, while we get through this, work on alternative energies. Now, there's hydroelectric, there's solar, there's nuclear. Almost 50% of our energy is done that way anyway. And if you look at China, why are they doing so well through this? Because the majority of the production is, I think they almost have 1,000. They have like 10 times more production in the world combined of solar and alternative energies. So yeah, look through things that don't really cost us on such a high reliance on oil coming out of the Middle East, which has always been an issue for us. It does work. I mean, whether you're a fan of solar or wind or hydroelectric or thermal, whatever, one of those or both, or a couple of those worked in concession being up in the process would make a difference, especially nuclear. Everyone's afraid of nuclear, but guess what? It works pretty well, and it's really cheap, and it's super efficient. So, yeah, and another thing, a quick point I want to make is a lot of people say, oh, Iran's so stupid, they're savages. Listen, they've been around for forever. This Persian civilization, I don't agree with the theocracy there. I don't agree with, but you know what? They're not idiots. They know what they're doing. They're using the Strait as in, that's their nuclear weapon. Let's be honest. That is their deterrent. And they're using it. So let's try to go away from that. I actually did agree with that point you made last week. Let's try that third option, because I know the other two options aren't working. As much as I'd like a deal, it's not going to happen. I think you have too many people in the way, too many things are going to happen, and it really isn't a good deal in the first place. I mean, let's just be honest. And war, to me, is never an option, especially at this level. We're not talking, if we were saying, oh, we're going into this now, we'll throw some, air attacks and we'll do this from the sky. All right, let's try it out. Well, we tried it out. We saw what happened. And I think we'd be at stage 2 or 3 now. And stage 2 or 3, I don't think any Americans are really going to support. And that's it. That's just
well,
that's
what's happening now, Jim, is it's becoming a quagmire. The negotiations are becoming a quagmire. The Strait of Hormuz is clearly now a quagmire. One lane is open. Sometimes it's, open, it's closed, then they reopen it, then they close it again. So the Strait of Hormuz is becoming a quagmire. Lebanon is becoming a quagmire. And I really want to urge, not just you, Jim, but all of you listening, the entire Kuhner Country audience, it's a sideshow, Lebanon is, until it's not a sideshow. Meaning, the country now, according to the president of Lebanon, he delivered an address to the entire nation, saying his words, not mine, we are on the edge of an abyss of a civil war. That Lebanon is going to have a civil war like they had in the late 1970s, where the whole thing is just going to blow apart. He said the Christians are tired of all of the bombing. They're tired of Hezbollah. They're tired of the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. The president of Lebanon, who's a Christian, told Hezbollah, get out, take your weapons, take your cash, take your funds, take your propaganda, take your men, get out of our country. You are destroying us. And Israel now has come out and said they are not going to allow Hezbollah to get entrenched in Lebanon so they can launch drone after drone, rocket after rocket, missile after missile, pounding northern Israel night after night, day after day. And Bibi has now said, if I've got to launch an all-out invasion into Lebanon, I will. Hezbollah has said they have over 100,000 rockets and missiles that they are now willing to fire into Israel. So Lebanon is going to blow sky high, and it's going to lead to a massive war. Trump now has come out, and this is the big development on top of everything else. He floated it on Friday. He now has really hammered the point home. He has criticized Israel openly in the interview with Fox News, on not just on Truth Social, but interview with Fox, the Trey Yangst. He says, I'm almost quoting him now verbatim. He said, I don't like the way Israel is handling Hezbollah. They should have knocked them out already. But they're not able to deliver the knockout blow. And so what they're doing is, he says, they're targeting buildings where there are some Hezbollah terrorists, and the whole building comes crashing down, the apartment houses. And he says it's killing a lot of civilians. Many of them are not Hezbollah supporters. I'm just telling you what Trump said. And so he said women are dying, children are dying, the people of Lebanon are getting very angry, the president is very angry. He goes, I don't believe Israel can finish Hezbollah off, at least not without doing all of this massive collateral damage. So he said, you know who I think can? Syria. And he said the leader of Syria is, a fighter himself. He says, I've spoken to him. He said, unleash me and my army. And forget Israel. Put Israel on the sidelines. And Syria will invade Lebanon. And we will take out Hezbollah because we are going to go right on the ground and take them out one by one by one by one. Not from the air, but from the ground. Now, the problem with that is, A, I don't know if Israel will ever accept that. B, the president of Syria, you can look it up, please, don't take my word for it, is Al-Qaeda. In fact, for a while he was ISIS. But he's Al-Qaeda. He's a Sunni terrorist. He has massacred and continues to massacre Christians, Alawites, the Druze in Syria. He's a head chopper. I mean, I'm not I'm not a figure of speech. He's been on videos when he was a warrior sawing people's heads off. This is the guy now who's running Syria. We're going to unleash this savage, this animal, into Lebanon, and God knows the atrocities that are going to be committed? All hell is going to break loose. So Lebanon is now turning into a quagmire. So here's the problem. Hezbollah doesn't want to stop attacking Israel. Israel will never stop retaliating. So that means the Lebanon issue is going to derail the memorandum of understanding. It already is. The Iranians now have said they're never going to give up enrichment. So I'm looking at this memorandum of understanding and I'm like, how does this get off the ground? It's conditioned on a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel. There will never be one. It's conditioned upon Iran giving up their nuclear program and their capacity for enrichment. They've said it again. You said unconditional surrender. We're still standing. You changed your mind. You're going to change your mind on this. We're going to force you to concede on this. So Trump now is in a bind because he's negotiating with these barbarians. They're fanatics. Trump himself famously said on Truth Social, on X, Iran has never won a war and they have never lost a negotiation. This is what they do. They haggle and haggle and haggle until you just throw your hands up. And so my advice to the president is it's a quagmire. Like quicksand. The more you step in it, the more you sink. So you've got two options. And time is wasting. We're going into July now. Either just get out. Just get out. That's fine. Just get out. Or resume the war and this time finish it. And what I mean by finish it is send the U.S. Navy into the Strait of Hormuz. Forcibly reopen the strait. Take away that leverage from the mullahs. And then you'll see a very different negotiation. But I think the longer he tries to go on with this negotiation, especially the way they're insulting the president and insulting the vice president, I mean, to me, it's unacceptable. And I love this man dearly. I voted for him 3 times. I campaigned for him 3 times. I put my career on the line for him every single time. I'm one of the most hated men in Massachusetts because of my support for him. I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining. But I can't stand to see him keep making these threats over and over and over and over again. And it's getting to the point now they're mocking him publicly, the Iranians. He's all talk, no action. He will never bomb us. We don't take his threats seriously. Quote, we laugh at you. I'm like, get out of there. Give him the middle finger. Listen to me, honestly. Give him the middle finger at the negotiating table and get the hell out of there. And then say, okay, you think I'm bluffing, huh? I'm a BSer, huh? Okay. Now you're really going to learn a lesson you're never going to forget. You don't treat an American president like this. You don't treat a vice president like this. Especially a good, decent vice president like J.D. Vance. He extended his hand to say, let's be friends and let's negotiate in good faith. They refused the hand. Do you understand? They threw his hand away. Like, don't even touch me. You don't disrespect the United States like this on the world stage. Period. And by the way, not when we're offering you the peace deal of a lifetime. They should be thanking us, groveling and thanking us for the peace deal that we're about to potentially sign. They're looking at $400, $500, $600 billion. They're never going to be richer than now. He's going to help rebuild all of Iran. And this is how you treat us? Blank off. I'm sorry, that's the only response. What else does a self-respecting country, what else would a self-respecting country say? Okay, buddy, blank off. Okay, you think we're bluffing? Okay. You're going to find out soon. But this, I'm sorry, this is a humiliation. They're humiliating us. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Mike, who do you want me to go to next? Lisa in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Hey, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Lisa?
Well, I'm a little PO'd, if I'm going to tell the truth.
Lisa, hold on. Literally, you sound like a man now. Something has happened. We got to restore the connection. You don't sound like a robot, but you sound like a man. So unless you've gotten a sex change operation within 2 seconds, let's see if we can make you sound like Lisa again. Mike, have we restored the connection? Mike is still working on it. You want me to go to somebody else, Mike, or you want to give Lisa another try? All right, let's go back to Lisa. Lisa, are you there?
I am.
Yes, you sound like yourself. Go ahead, Lisa.
So I'm a little upset, so I'm going to stay as calm as possible. I've been off the grid for a couple of months, if you've noticed. I haven't called or anything like that because I had to walk away because I'm one of those MAGA people, Trump people that trusts him, not necessarily everybody around him, but trusts him. And I know that he's brilliant. I know that he's been following this for decades. And I know that his goal in his heart and in his legacy is world peace. Right? So that's ultimately what he wants to be remembered for. He knows that Iran being Iran will never give us world peace. So what did he try to do? He tried to get rid of the nuclear program completely because they're only made for us. The missiles that they have hit everybody else. The nuclear program is directly for us. You know, death to America for 50 years. So in my heart, I want to believe that he is doing this because of the protests in Iran, because the young people were rising up. He knew they couldn't defend themselves, so he did what he could from the air. He wants to get rid of the nuclear program and delay it far enough into the future that those college students and young people that were in the streets will find a way to be the actual regime. And then he gets to delay with enough time for them to rise up. He's taken down 2 levels, going into the 3rd level. He does not want to hurt civilians. He does not want to put boots on the ground. He's trying to save the world. NATO turned their back on him. He's basically fighting this war with his hands tied behind his back. And I am so sick and tired of people saying, oh, I'm embarrassed by him, and he all talk and no action. This guy has more balls than any living president that we've ever known, and he is trying to fight the world alone. He doesn't know who he can trust. Nobody wants to back him. If it were me, I would walk away from NATO. I would join forces with Russia and China, keep my enemies close. I would take over that strait, and I would put my middle finger to the rest of the world. That's just how I feel about it.
Well, I mean, Lisa, what would you recommend? Because apparently negotiations are continuing. Vance is forcing the issue, forcing the negotiations to go forward. And he says that they're looking to end the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. They want a ceasefire there. And apparently now the Iranian delegation is back at the talks. And slowly but surely, they're now saying they could buy U.S. crops. I'm not kidding, U.S. crops with some of the frozen assets that would be unfrozen. So Vance is basically saying, look, we're starting to slowly begin to chop wood, as he put it. We're starting to slowly get the talks back on track. And, Vance says, let's keep going, because he thinks in the end we can get a reasonable deal. What do you say, Lisa?
Disagree. However, I don't disagree with the diplomacy. I don't disagree with trying every conceivable attempt to not have to hurt civilians. There is no way Trump is walking away. There's no way. We saw what he's capable of doing in the dark of night. So we know that they're capable of blowing them right up off the map, which should have been done 25 years ago anyway, but that's neither here nor there. I think diplomacy for his legacy, he wants to be a peacemaker. He wants to try everything he can, no matter how inconceivable it might be, because he doesn't want war. He doesn't want official war. But if his back's against the wall and they keep it up, in my opinion, there's no way he walks away. There will be, another phase of the war. He's trying to avoid the water. He's trying to avoid their tanks. It's not because...
No, I agree with you. You're saying, look, he's not afraid. Okay, it's been an insane weekend. Anyway, so here is the absolute latest. Talks have resumed in Switzerland. The Iranian delegation stormed out over the weekend, and talks were at least temporarily suspended. Apparently, the Strait of Hormuz was closed for a while. It has now been at least partially reopened, and this is now what President Trump told Fox News. According to Trey Yingst, he was the reporter that he spoke to, that apparently Trump told Fox that he spoke with Iranian officials overnight, and referring to the Strait of Hormuz, said, "You close it and you won't have a country." He went on to tell these officials, quote, "You won't even make it back to your effing country." So he basically threatened to kill or blow up the Iranian delegation if they tried to close the Strait of Hormuz again. As to the comments, we played them earlier, of Iran's president saying that Iran will never give up the right to enrichment of nuclear power, that just like Trump did a U-turn or a reversal on, according to him, on unconditional surrender and regime change, that Trump will bend to Iran's will on this as well, and that Iran will keep the right to enrich uranium. Trump then said, quote, he said regarding the president, he told him to keep his mouth shut. Quote, he better watch his mouth, he better shape up, or we'll take over the rest of the country. Trump has now come out and said that he now is seriously thinking about taking back full control of the Strait of Hormuz. As he put it, blow the crap out of Iran, and that he will then send in the U.S. Navy. And as he put it, the U.S. may take over the strait in the future, and if we have to, we will collect tolls. The president said the United States is being the guardian angel of the Strait of Hormuz and the entire Middle East. And so the president said ultimately that would involve the United States taking 20% of the oil that passes through the Strait of Hormuz, according to Fox News' Trey Yingst. So, in a nutshell, President Trump is now telling Iran it's make it or break it. And if you close the strait one more time, I'm blowing Iran to kingdom come. We're going to take over the Strait of Hormuz. We may even take over all of Iran. And we will be the ones patrolling, controlling the strait, and we will be charging tolls. My question to you, should the United States resume the war? Are the peace negotiations, for all intents and purposes, over? And should we forcibly, militarily reopen the strait? And should we be patrolling the strait from now on, as Trump put it, as the guardian angel, and taking a 20% cut of all oil that flows through the strait? Do we want the United States now to be effectively the policeman of the Strait of Hormuz? Yes, no, agree, disagree. 617-266-6868. Mike? Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Bob.
what you just said, I'll give it a big yes, because you cannot negotiate with these bums. It's impossible to get them to think our way. I had this conversation Saturday with somebody very close to you, and you said to me earlier
You mean my wonderful wife on her show, right?
Yes. Yes, very close to you, right? Your wife, yeah. Anyway, where was I?
You had this conversation with her. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, well, you said earlier that you love the Iranian people. Well, I have a problem with that, and I'm going to tell you why. My gut feeling is, and I had this conversation the other day, I do not want these people in my town, living next door to me, building a mosque in my town. I don't want anything to do with these people. Fine, let them run their own country, leave us alone, and I agree that Trump should take over the strait, and I couldn't agree with you more when it comes to that. But, that's how I feel about it, but as far as loving the Iranian people, I do not. I'm sorry.
Well, what I mean by the Iranian people, Bob, I don't mean the regime and the people who support the regime. I mean the people who are protesting on the streets, or at least they were until they were all massacred by these savages. Many of them, waving American flags, who are pro-Western, pro-American. Many support the son of the Shah. They want a constitutional monarchy. They want a normal, stable country, good ties with their neighbors, with Israel, with Europe, with the United States. To me, those are the people. When I say the people of Iran, those are the people that I'm talking about, Bob. Certainly not the fanatics. Bob, I've got to ask you, because you've been a strong supporter of this war from the beginning. Did Trump's team, strategically, did they make a mistake by not taking the Strait of Hormuz early in the war? Did that inadvertently, I know they knew it deliberately, but did that unintentionally give Iran effective control over the strait and now this leverage, which they're using to the maximum?
Go in there and just take it and keep it and the hell with them. I'm sick and tired of these people.
I'm with you. I'm so sick and tired of them as well. Bob, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Okay, a lot of people are speculating about a joke that Trump made. This was in France at the end of the G7 summit after he signed the Memorandum of Understanding, in which he was kidding around saying, hey, look, if the MOU works out great, everybody's going to give me the credit. But if it fails, you know who's going to be the scapegoat? You know who's going to be the fall guy? J.D. Vance. And he was laughing and chuckling and, kind of ribbing and teasing J.D. a little bit, saying, does that make you nervous, J.D.? Are you a little nervous? And some people were saying, it's a joke, but it's not a joke. In other words, there's some truth behind the joke. Is President Trump potentially setting up J.D. Vance to fail? Not that he wants him to fail, obviously, but, heads I win, tails you lose. If somehow J.D. hammers out an agreement and the Iranians sign a final deal, Trump will claim a lot of the credit, as he should. But if the talks fall apart and it turns into an absolute disaster or a complete failure, well, who's the face of the negotiations? J.D. Vance. Who's doing all the press conferences in Switzerland? J.D. Vance. So it will be seen in some ways as his failure. And will that damage him, fatally cripple or undermine him to be the inevitable nominee in 2028? So this deal, will it take down J.D.? If the deal goes down, does J.D. and his reputation go down? Listen now to J.D. Vance. He's in Switzerland now, and this is how the kind of high stakes that they believe this negotiation poses for not just Iran, but the entire Middle East. Listen now to J.D. Vance saying, we don't just want a deal. We want to transform our relationship with Iran and Iran's relationship with the region and the world. As he puts it, we want to turn a new leaf. Roll cut to Mike.
First of all, I want to thank the President of the United States, who sends his best to all the great leaders assembled here, because he's empowered us to find a diplomatic resolution to a host of issues that matter to the American people, but I think the world. The opening of the Strait of Hormuz, the ending of the Iranian nuclear program, all of these things have already been accomplished. The question before us now is how much more can we accomplish together? Can we turn over a new leaf? Can we change relations in the Middle East permanently? Or do we go back to doing things the old way, which is not our preference, but is certainly very much something that can happen?
So basically, are we going to go back to the old Middle East, which has been the Middle East for thousands of years? Or can they literally transform this regime in Iran and put them on a road to the true road to peace and prosperity and new relations with the entire region, including America? Now, listen to JD saying what we want is we want a transformed new Iran, a new era in the Middle East. Roll cut to Mike.
I think it's important for the American people, but people all over the world to appreciate that what's brought us to this moment is the President's leadership and the President's willingness to see a Middle East that is much different 10 years from now than it was 10 years ago. And what we're trying to accomplish here is very simple. Through diplomacy, through working together to transform the Middle East, where Iran and the Gulf have been at war with each other, or at least have had very unfriendly relations. Iran has been a driver of regional instability. Now we see a future where everybody can work together to promote peace and prosperity for everyone.
I think the vision is beautiful. It's Western. It's American. It's forward-looking. It's, as I said, it's visionary. It's futuristic. It's Christian in a profound level, Judeo-Christian. It believes in forgiveness, as in turning a new leaf. Let's forget the past and all the atrocities and sins of the past and the crimes of the past. We're willing to turn the other cheek if you're willing to change your ways. So, to me, the vision is beautiful. I commend Trump and JD for putting this incredible path there for Iran and for the entire Middle East. It truly, if they embraced it, if the Iranians embraced it, it would truly be transformative. There's no question. I don't think it's going to happen. Because I think the mullahs are the mullahs are the mullahs. You ever hear this, the famous expression, meet the new boss, same as the old boss? I think the people negotiating now, I think the leadership in Iran, this is still the old regime. The theocratic, Shia, Islamo-fascist regime that is wedded to terrorism and revolution. And that's why you're not going to see a fundamental change. I know JD's hoping for the best. I know Trump is hoping for the best. But as someone famously said, a leopard can't change its spots. This regime cannot change its spots. And I think that's where the vision is going to crash on the rocks of reality. But that's just me. I want to hear from you. And so the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. By making Vice President J.D. Vance the face of the Iran negotiations, is President Trump trying to help or hurt J.D. Vance? I think, to me, there's no question he's trying to help J.D. He trusts J.D. Vance. This is maybe the most important negotiation of Trump's presidency, and he feels there's no one more competent to do it than J.D. Vance. I think the problem is, if the negotiations collapse, it may end up hurting J.D. inadvertently. But I want to ask you, does it help or hurt? Is President Trump trying to help him or hurt him? Okay, Maestro Mike, Mark in Medford. All right, let's go to Mark in. You're worth every second. Go ahead, my friend.
Oh, for anyone to think or say that Trump is doing this to set J.D. Vance up to fail is absolutely foolish. Okay? He's the vice president. You know what he's doing, Jeff? He's being the vice president. He's got a job to do as well, not just sit there and do nothing like every other vice president before him. You know, Trump can't be everywhere, and Trump can't do everything all at the same time, which is the reason why you pick a vice president. Am I right or am I wrong, Jeff?
You're completely right. 1,000% correct.
Number two, what we seem to not realize is that we're trying to... Oh, by the way, I'm surprised you haven't brought this up, but Fox News also broke that J.D. Vance said that Iran will now allow the International Atomic Agency Association into Iran. Also. Did you see that?
I did. That's good. I mean, but Mark, let me ask you this. Do you trust the Iranians, or are they going to, because remember, we've had the IAEA in there for years, and they just hide stuff. They just keep hiding and playing games, the way the Iraqis did. So, I mean, it's nice that the IAEA is going to go in there. Don't get me wrong. But do you really trust, A, the UN to monitor, and B, that the Iranians will be honest?
Jeff, I don't. I really don't. And you have a good point there. But what I was going to say before I mentioned that was, what we seem to not realize is that we're trying to negotiate with people that live in the 7th century. In their sick and twisted, warped minds, they believe that they are superior to everyone else in this world. And that's just not the case. They think the Muslim religion is the end-all, be-all. And that is not the case, Jeff. And more countries, except for the United States and Israel, should step up and say, sorry, you're not. And I'm sick and tired of Iran playing these games, because Trump ain't playing games, okay? He will blow them back to the 7th century.
Mark, I won't cut you off. I promise I'll let you finish your point. But, you're saying they have their 7th century, essentially 7th century barbarians. And you're completely right. There is a video that has gone viral. It's one of many videos. And if you ever have time, Mark, I urge you to look at it. It's very difficult to watch, but it really gives you an inside view into this regime and Iranian society, and just how medieval, how primitive, how barbaric it is. It is a husband she looks to me, it's a wife, he has a wife. I think she's in her 20s, I just think. She's got the head covering, and he has her tied up. He's literally tied her up with rope. And this is outside the home. And she did something, we don't know what, but he's just yelling and screaming at her in Farsi that she disappointed him, that she, quote, didn't please him the way you should please a master. And so he begins, and it's being videotaped, he starts to beat her, like literally beat her. And then he grabs her, and she's crying. And she's all tied up. And he locks her up in this room. And it's sweltering hot outside. Okay, it's like over 100 degrees. I mean, it is like it's an oven. And he lets her basically bake in that room. And then he comes back, it's the video, and I don't know how long he was gone, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. She's begging for forgiveness, and he drags her out again in front of the house. And he just starts to beat her and beat her and beat her and beat her. And then he tells her to go inside the house. I'm telling you, we don't treat dogs. We don't treat animals the way these Islamist savages treat their women. It's so, when you watch it, it is so disconcerting. You want to talk about misogyny. You want to talk about sexism. You want to talk about, I'm using feminist lingo now, the patriarchy. I've never seen something like this. I'm sorry, these people are animals. They're animals. And Mark, I'll never forget this. When Ahmadinejad, I nicknamed him I Want the Jihad. He was then the president of Iran. This was, 10 years ago, whatever it was. And he was the one, we're going to bomb, we're going to nuke Israel. We're going to wipe them off the face of the earth. He's the one that started all this. We're going to get the bomb and we're going to kill every single Jew. And so he was interviewed by, there was some conference that he held, a Holocaust denying conference. And he was interviewed by the media what he thought of women. And I'll never forget this because I repeated what he said about women. And yet I got so much blowback from the audience because they were saying I was being Islamophobic. And I'm like, how am I being Islamophobic? I'm just literally repeating to you what this guy said he believes about women. And he said everybody in the regime believes this, and all the Shia fanatics in Iran, they believe this. This is what they're taught in the Quran, and this is what they're taught by their Muslim scholars. And I'll never forget this. He said, we believe in beating our women, but there's a way to beat your woman. Like, in other words, there's like certain things you can do and certain things you can't do. Like, for example, you can't smash them in the face. You can hit the back, you can hit the legs, you can hit the back of the head, but you don't hit in the face. And he said, you see how enlightened we are here. I'm not kidding. He said, you see how enlightened. And he said this, yes, she's a woman. She's less than a man, but she's more than a dog. Meaning, like, a dog you can just beat the hell out of. Like, there's no rules. But with a woman, hey, this is how sophisticated we are. You can hit him in the arms, the shoulders, the back of the head, the leg, but not in the face. Not in the face. Hey, come on, she's not a dog. She's not a man, of course. She's way inferior. But she's more than a dog. I don't know. I got tremendous blowback. Take him off the air, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm just quoting his own words. But I can't quote his own words? But that's a glimpse into their worldview, into their mentality, into the savagery of their mind. This is what we're negotiating with. And what I'm trying to tell President Trump is, I know you do the art of the deal. I get it. But with these savages, a deal is beyond their comprehension. They see a woman and they beat her black and blue and praise themselves, saying, but I didn't kick her face in because she's not a dog. There's nothing to negotiate. Mark, am I wrong?
Jeff, you're absolutely right. It goes to show you what animals these people are. We don't even treat the worst of our worst criminals in this country that way. At least not today, anyway, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But you know what, Jeff? Maybe they'll understand if we treat them the way they like to treat women. What if we treat them like that? They won't last 5 minutes. And I think it's like I don't trust them, Jeff. And I have a funny feeling it's gonna go right back to making holes in the surface of Iran again, but only bigger ones this time. And if that's the case, then you know what? I have a message for Donald Trump. If we have to bomb them again, make sure you make it count this time, and make sure all those mullahs get bombed to holy hell back to the 7th century.
Mark, as always, thank you for your call, my friend. 617-266-6868. Okay, just very quick, as the lines are jammed and I want to take more calls. Lindsey Graham has been closely advising Trump this entire war. He's been spending a lot of time with Trump in the Situation Room at the White House. On Friday, when all this blew up, they closed the Strait of Hormuz temporarily. They said extremely offensive, insulting things to the president and the vice president. Then they stormed out of the negotiations. Now they're back in. So, Trump was upset. I don't blame him. He was really upset. So he spoke with Lindsey Graham in the White House for 4.5 hours. They had a 4.5 hour conversation. Lindsey Graham went on CBS yesterday and he said, here's my prediction. This is what Trump is going to end up doing after that 4.5 hour conversation. Roll cut 12, Mike.
Is the MOU problematic? Yeah. I'd rather try diplomacy than take it off the table. The money Iran gets is not going to change the future of Iran. It's not enough to reconstruct the country. If you don't have a diplomatic path through the MOU, then you have to go to war or some other form of coercion. Let's try this. Let's try a diplomatic solution. I think it's going to fail. What happens next? I spent 4.5 hours with President Trump Friday. Here's what I think will happen next. If this deal fails, President Trump is going to take the Strait of Hormuz over by force. The United States will control the Strait of Hormuz. We'll charge a fee for all those who go through to pay for the operation, and we're going to expand the Abraham Accords in calendar year 2026. We're going to get Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords, and which is the biggest change in 5,000 years in the Mideast. And if Iran contests control of the Strait of Hormuz by the United States, we will obliterate them.
So I think he's basically revealing Trump's thinking. I don't believe Lindsey is BSing on this. I think he did speak to the president for 4.5 hours. That's been confirmed. And I think basically he said, look, Trump said, I got to give peace a chance. I got to give it the absolute utmost chance. If I'm going to take the country back to war, I have to, in my conscience and to the people of the world and to the American people, I exhausted every diplomatic option. But I think it's obvious they both believe it's not going to work. It's just going to fail because these savages are going to make it fail. And then I think the plan is, he's right. We're going to forcibly take back the Strait of Hormuz militarily. We're going to take it back. Trump says, you know what? We're going to charge a toll. We're the ones who are going to charge a toll because this is expensive. So we're going to recoup all our money. And if the Iranians try to challenge us in the Strait, we are going to bomb them into oblivion. And I think the larger goal is, and this is their plan B, because Iran attacked Saudi Arabia, because Iran has attacked United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, these key Persian Gulf states that are just swimming in oil, Trump is going to drive them into the Abraham Accords, forge an alliance between Sunni Islam, these Persian Gulf states, Saudi Arabia being the key one, and Israel, to diplomatically encircle Iran. And then they're going to really be screwed because they don't have the strait they're going to be obliterated, and then they're going to be surrounded by a confederation of an alliance that will keep them contained for God knows how many hundreds of years. You see, if they had half a brain, you take the deal. Stupid. But no, it's beyond their capacity. It's like a caveman, with the fire, putting two sticks together and trying to create sparks of fire. And you're saying, I'll give you a house, I'll give you a car, I'll give you modern electricity, I'll give you computers, and they're, no, he just wants his two sticks. That's all he knows, that's all he cares about. And a club, so he can hit a woman over the head and then drag her by the feet. That's what we're dealing with. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Mike? Tom in Lynn. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Tom?
Not bad, not bad. A couple of things. Woodcock and Kushner are not diplomats. They're company men. They need to get out of the way. 2, Vance. I like Vance, Jeff. He was a Marine, and he was an EM. He was an enlisted man. He wasn't an officer. I like that. And I also like the fact that he's a convert to Catholicism. All right? Now, last week, you took apart that memorandum of understanding pretty good. There's a lot of holes in it. There's too many moving parts. It's a no-win situation. Everyone knows that. Trump knows it. But here's the thing. Trump is doing to Vance the same thing that Eamon de Valera did to Michael Collins in 1920 and 1921 when he sent him to negotiate with the Brits. It was a no-win situation, and we know what happened to Michael Collins.
I mean, I hope that doesn't happen to J.D. Vance. God forbid. The last thing I'd want to do is see that poor man assassinated. Look, Tom, this is how I read this situation. I think Trump really implicitly trusts J.D. He's very loyal to the president. He's also extremely smart. He's very cool. J.D. Vance is just generally very cool. What the negotiating team says is the Iranians will throw insults, and J.D. just ignores it like they didn't say anything. Or they'll try to bring up side issues, and J.D., he doesn't take the bait. A lot of people get, their temper gets up and they start arguing or they get upset. He just, let's just stick to this. Okay, no, can we just return to this now? That's fine, I hear you. But let's just go back to this. So he's a very cool, calm negotiator who knows exactly what President Trump wants to attain, what Trump is willing to give, what he's not willing to give, what are his red lines, what are not his red lines. And he knows he's a patriot. He's not going to sell us out at the negotiating table. And he's not going to betray the president. Now, look, to be honest, Trump cannot negotiate this deal because you're the president of the United States. It's too much. If it blows up, it damages the president's credibility and his aura. You need someone else to negotiate on behalf of the president. The fact that the president has chosen JD, his number 2, his right-hand man, is a sign that Trump is saying, these aren't, he's not sending his Secretary of State, which is also a very high position, or even Secretary of Defense. I'm sending you my vice president. It's as close to me as I can possibly send overseas. And that's the signal to the Iranians, but to the world. The stakes of this, how serious Trump is, how he really wants a deal, and what's going to happen if there is no deal. Because essentially, if you slap JD in the face, you're slapping Trump in the face. So, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but if the mullahs were smart, shut up. As Trump said, watch your mouth. And you better negotiate in good faith and come back with a deal we can be happy with. Because if JD comes back empty-handed, I think Trump's going to go Thunderdome. And I think, frankly, JD will advise him to go Thunderdome. Tom, final word to you. Agree, disagree?
No. Trump's the one who needs to watch his mouth. One day he's going to do this, the next day he's going to do that. Today, yesterday, now he's going to bomb him off the face of the earth. Well, that's good for you. It's a no-win situation. Vance can only lose.
Interesting. So you think he's setting him up to fail, Tom?
Setting him up. It's a no-win situation. There's too many moving parts. Hezbollah, Lebanon, the Litani River. Now they're bombing Beirut. Israel, domestic politics. They want to get rid of Netanyahu. They're saying they want to get rid of Trump here. There's too many moving parts. It's a no-win situation. Say what you want about Vance, and as I say, I like him a lot, but there's no winners here.
Well, let me ask you this, Tom. If, say, JD doesn't come back with a deal, say Hezbollah blows it up, or the war in Lebanon blows it up, or the mullahs just say, no, we're not going to give up enrichment, and the whole thing blows up. Do you think that really damages JD for 2028? Like, does that knock him out of winning the primary in 2028? What say you?
I don't know.
See, I hope not, because I don't think it's his fault. I really don't. But, Tom, thank you for that call. Ken in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Ken.
Still winning. You know, Jeff, the only thing that gives me a little pause is your Lindsey Graham story. Him with the president for 4.5, that's not good. But let's set that aside. Let's describe what's really happening, because your prime question over the past half hour or so, what does this do? What's happening for J.D. Vance's future? I think this is very good for J.D. Vance's future. Why? Let's say ultimately this is under control. You know, things open up in the straits. Gas prices keep going down. There's a good resolution ultimately. It may take some time. Are you kidding me? He's got more credentials than anybody in the world to be president of the United States in 2028. This is excellent training. And on top of it, I think they're playing out a good cop, bad cop game. And, you know, we're making a big deal about the public statements that have been made over the last couple days. And, you know what, the Iranians, especially the IRGC, the people that are the tough guys, they always peacock. Always. And on both sides, there's been a lot of bloviating. Meanwhile, do we really know what's going on in these negotiations? No. None of us really do. Have some patience, folks. Because ultimately, it's what's in those negotiations, what follows, that's going to matter. And all the talk about the mullahs, Jeff, I know you and everybody does mullahs. The mullahs have virtually no power. The power is when they had Khomeini and Khomeini. They're gone. The days of the mullahs are gone. The IRGC is really calling the shots. And keep an eye on Ghalibaf. Ghalibaf is the bridge to a better future. He's not a good guy. I'm not suggesting. But, you know, when the president talks about, oh, they got better people, basically talking about Ghalibaf, folks. He's the only one they have left with hardly any brains. All these peacockers are just no brains, and the guy, we already took out the latest guy, Tahiti, as I described, and everything is actually going well as long as we don't try to put feet on their land. Now, we did have a brief situation where we rescued a couple months ago around Easter. Sort of that. Stay away putting your feet on Iran land. And you don't have to worry about the strait being fully closed. It probably never will be again. Because right now it's wide open to Iran. Iran's going crazy. And that's not good for the short term, but don't worry about it. We can travel the strait anytime we want, nighttime, because they can't watch us. So don't worry about the strait being closed, or we shouldn't be playing these games. You know, I know it's a threat, but it's an idle threat. He's just blow-bidding Trump as far as, you know, putting a costs. We're going to do what they do. Nah, that's not going to happen. It's all for show, but what is substantively happening is good down the road. And the other thing, what's going to happen to the midterms? Don't worry about the midterms. Everything's comparative, folks. The D's are weaker than they ever have. And
they're getting more insane and more extreme. And I think that's going to be Trump's ace in the hole in the midterms. That when you keep putting up candidates like, I don't know, Graham Plattner, I could run down the list, they may say, I'm not crazy about the Republicans, but I'm not voting for that. I'm not voting for full-throated communism. So I do agree with you, Ken. I think the midterms could be a surprise for a lot of people. Look, you're right. This is JD's moment now in the sun. There's no question. And if he can hammer out a deal, I think there's no question it sets him up beautifully in 2028. No question. The question, though, is can we do a deal? And only time will tell. What I can say with definitive certainty is if they continue to resist on enrichment, Trump is going to have no choice but to scrap the deal. If they continue that Israel cannot defend itself and Hezbollah keeps attacking Israel, then the deal is also gonna blow up. So we'll see what's going to happen. I am very skeptical. 617-266-6868. Okay, I want to play two cuts, and I think both of them, in their own way, to me, show clearly, A, that the IRGC regime, the hardliners that are running now Iran, these Islamo-fascist theocrats, they're not interested in peace. They're not interested in a peace deal. And secondly, I don't see how this memorandum of understanding survives another 60 days of the negotiations. Okay, this is the Homeland Security Secretary, Mark Wayne Mullen. He's on Fox. And he says, we got a problem with our border with Canada. Really? What's the problem with the border with Canada? Iranians are coming in. They're pouring in across our northern border illegally, surreptitiously, and we're finding out they're tied to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, i.e., they are sleeper cells or terrorists who are trying to come into our country as we're trying to talk peace with the leadership in Switzerland. Roll cut 14, a mic.
What we've seen happen on our northern border, because of the amount of pressure President Trump has put on Iran with the peace through strength, is we've seen an unusually amount of Iranian nationals trying to sneak in through our northern, not southern border, because President Trump's policies have closed the southern border. So our northern border, we've seen our arrests go up daily on Iranian nationals, and we have a good partnership with our Canadian partners that have been able to help apprehend them too. But it's worrisome because the amount of influx we see and the amount of connections we have when we capture the people that they have direct ties to the IRGC, which IRGC is not the regular army of Iran. The IRGC is the true believers of this radical regime. And fortunately, because of our strength zero policies that we have underneath President Trump, we're able to capture the individuals coming across.
They're not interested in peace. We're in the midst of a negotiation in Switzerland, and you're sending in your sleeper cells and your terrorists to come in through our northern border? It's obvious. They're preparing to continue a war, not in peace. Now, secondly, I want you to listen now to Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. He was delivering a speech at an international policy summit, and he says Iran is demanding, in order to continue negotiations, in order to implement the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, to get to a final deal, that Israel must pull out all of its forces and military from southern Lebanon. If they don't, the Iranians say they're walking away from the table. This is BB's response. Roll cut 11, Mike.
As long as we need to protect our people, we will remain in the security zone in South Lebanon. And the reason is perfectly understood. No country would be asked to do otherwise. Now you imagine the United States. Across the border, you have thousands, an army of thousands of terrorists who pellet your cities and your towns with rockets and ballistic missiles and killer drones. They kill your soldiers, they kill your citizens, they kill your children. And they threaten them every day. Well, what would America do? Would it say, well, there's nothing we can do? Let's hold our fire? Is that what America would say? No. You know damn well what America would do. It would cross the border, create a security zone, kill the terrorists, and protect its people until the threat is removed. That's exactly what we are doing.
Does this guy sound to you like he's gonna, say, guys, hold fire, hold fire, hold fire. For the sake of the negotiations, let's just keep taking it on the chin from Hezbollah. I don't think so. So, Israel rightfully is going to hit back. Hezbollah is going to continue to fire. And this war in Lebanon is going to go on and on, probably escalate. If that's the case, according to the Iranians, they're walking away. There's going to be no memorandum of understanding, no peace talks, no ceasefire. The negotiations will collapse. So, with all due respect to JD, I love the guy. I think he's brilliant. I think he'd be an amazing successor to Trump. I don't know if anybody can get a peace deal. 617-266-6868. Eddie in Charleston. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi, Eddie.
Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Eddie.
Okay. Let's not forget about 16 service members that got killed already over this piece of garbage MOU, okay? An empty promise. It's already been proven many, many times. It's already been talked about. I'm sick about hearing this and listening to it. It can't be trusted. They don't want peace. The president has to go in there, hit them hard, and let's get this job done once and for all and end it. And it's unfortunate that we're going to have to lose more people, but you know what? We lost 58,000 people in Vietnam because we didn't finish the job. Let's do it like D-Day in World War II, invade, get a job done, and let's cut out the nonsense. He's already gave peace a try. They don't want peace. So let's just get the job done and end it once and for all, because if not, like you just said, they're coming in from the northern border. There's going to be more 9/11s. And what's that going to take? The United States and the Democrats to wake up and find out what's really going on? Let's not let it get that far. Let's hit them hard, take the Strait of Hormuz back, invade the country, and give the people freedom there. And that's all I have to say.
Eddie, thank you very much for that call. Look, there's a famous story about the Middle East. And this, to me, captures this regime in Tehran to a T. Nothing describes it better than this story. So, you have a scorpion. The scorpion approaches a frog and says, can you do me a favor? I need you to take me across the pond. Because the scorpion's going to drown. He can't swim across the pond. And the frog says, yeah, but you're a scorpion. Are you going to give me any guarantees? You're not going to sting me? Because if you sting me, you're poisonous, I'm going to die. I don't want to die. And by the way, you're going to die with me. The scorpion turns around and says, why would I do that? If I sting you and we're halfway through the water, you drown and I drown. It makes no sense. So I promise, please, I really need to get to the other side. please, and I promise I'll pay you back somehow, some way. Can you please just give me a lift, put me on top of you, and take me across the pond? So the frog says, well, he's got a very good point. I mean, he stings me. He's going to drown as well. He's not suicidal. So he starts taking him across the pond. We're 1/4 there, nothing. 1/3 there, no problem. Halfway through, pond. Now the frog can even see the other side of the pond. And he thinks, yeah, it's all going to be fine. And then out of the blue, bang, the scorpion stings him. And the frog says to the scorpion, why did you do that? Now we're both going to drown. The scorpion to the frog, F you, welcome to the Middle East. And they both drown. Meaning, a scorpion is a scorpion is a scorpion. The frog is the West. Rational, reasonable, pragmatic, let's all work together. Let's see if we can live together in harmony. Why would he do this? It's so self-destructive. He kills me, but he kills himself. A scorpion is a scorpion is a scorpion. That's the nature of the scorpion. That's the fundamental flaw in this MOU. With all due respect to JD and Trump, brilliant visionaries, brilliant men, kind-hearted men, civilized men, Western men, advanced men. Okay? I mean, if they would listen to JD and Trump, Iran would be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. The Middle East would be one of the wealthiest regions in the world. But you're dealing with a scorpion. And the scorpion only knows one thing: to sting. To sting. And even if it means they die in the process, they don't care. They sting. That's what you're dealing with. And that's why I fear all we're doing now is simply wasting time. And I hope it doesn't damage Trump's credibility or his prestige or his authority. 617-266-6868. You know what that means, Monday, 9:50. It's now your turn. Talk back, tit for tat, where we highlight the incredible insight, passion, and humor of our wonderful Kuhner Country listeners. So sit back and let's hear what Kuhner Country had to say this week. Take it away, Mike.
Hey, Jeff, I've seen your videos on X. For God's sake, invest in some loose-fitting clothes, please.
494 porta potties at the UFC fight? Graham Flatten's right arm must look like Popeye.
Which one of these is the most useless? A, Trump's Attorney General, pick after pick. B, Senate Majority Leader John Thune. Or C, Maestro Mike.
Paul McCartney from the Beatles. Paul McCartney from the Beatles.
3 days of this. Tell Kuhner, man, he sucks.
I'd like to see the hospital reports that Michelle Obama gave birth, where, when, and know how those babies come out of her.
Hey, Professor Kuhner, instead of signing off every day with bye-bye, why not use class dismissed?
I gotta say, finally somebody took a shot at Mike. Finally, thank you. Thank you. I gotta personally, this is my favorite segment. I just find it hilarious. Mike, the guy that said 3 days in a row, you suck. What was he, Mike, was he talking about me talking about the Iran war or whatever, the ceasefire? I think that's what he's talking about. The memorandum of understanding. I think. Yeah, regardless, I suck. No, I hear. Well, that's the moment I heard that. I said, now I know why Mike put that into compilation. Of course, He hears Jeff sucks. He goes in right away. By the way, I want to thank all of you. Really. Thank you so much. Please keep them coming. Download the iHeart app. Honestly, it's the best way to listen to the show. And then you just click at the right-hand corner, and there you go. You've got it all right there, and you can register your thoughts, your opinions, me, Sandy, Mike, whatever, positive, negative, however you want to feel, and we will play the best ones on the air every week at 9:50. 617-266-6868. Bob in Raynham. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Bob?
Good. I'd like to come at this from a little bit of a different angle, and I want to tie in the danger of liberalism. So obviously Iran is a closed society, and their people are limited to outside access to the internet. I'm sure some of the leadership's kids come over here to go to school, and they get exposure to what America really is like. But don't you think that the leadership in Iran bombards their people daily with the evil of the left as far as, their support of abortion, their mutilation of our children, the, let's see what else, homosexual marriage, showing men kissing, gay sex, and whatever. Now, why would any society, you say they're back in the Stone Age, which I agree with you 1,000%, and I'm no supporter of Iran by any means. And when the Shah was in, they were kind of getting westernized. But at this point, why would any civilization, either civil or barbarians as they are, want to introduce that evil and disgust that we're disgusted by into their culture? And I think it's easy to keep their people believing that we are the great Satan.
Oh, no, I think you're completely. I think it's a very profound point. My only regret is that it's so late in the show, because I think you've really put your finger on something very profound. I think the world is becoming culturally anti-American because of the cesspool that is much of our culture. Not all, but what you pointed out. And I think it's exactly why much of the world wants nothing to do with us culturally. And many of them do see us as the great Satan because of what we're exporting or trying to export to the rest of the world. The flip side, and you're right, they say, most ordinary Iranians are traditional. And they're like, we don't want this.